As a home to world-class research institutions, a flourishing biotech industry, and branches of corporate monoliths like Google, Facebook, and Amazon, the city of Cambridge is a rich source of opportunity, attracting thousands to the greater Boston area year by year. But, for many members of Cambridge's low-income communities, the path to a lucrative and fulfilling career remains challenging. In response, local programs have risen up to lend support and guidance. Audible and the Loop Lab have collaborated on a series exploring how the City of Cambridge allocates resources. We speak to Hector Acevedo from the Cambridge Job Connector, George Hines from the Mayor's Summer Youth Employment Program, and John Feynman at Inner City Weightlifting to learn about how their programs help young people make a turn toward financial stability and independence.
Job Connector by MIT is a professional development organization. We are a workforce development hub focusing on the workforce. And so we help Cambridge residents connect to various professional development opportunities as well as employment opportunities. And we encourage folks to really think about the things that they want to do and jobs that they want to apply for. And we help them become the best candidates for those positions.
I think the biggest thing that's needed in order to really connect young adults, especially in this area, to really gainful employment in the future is training programs. There's a lot of opportunities that exist in a ever-changing world that we're looking at, an increasingly digital world that are not accessible to people growing up, particularly if you're low income, if you're growing up in a more urban environment as well. I think it's difficult to see those jobs in the first place. You're not really coming out of high school or an area where people around you have those type of jobs, so the awareness of the job opportunities does not really exist. So that's kind of the first thing, I guess, is making people aware that there is a rapidly growing need for software engineers. Biotech jobs are also very much on the rise. There's a lot of different opportunities in Kendall Square and the innovation ecosystem that people just aren't aware of. So once the awareness is increased, it comes down to training, because I think people are starting to become more aware, but that doesn't necessarily mean you can just apply and get in. They're highly technical jobs for the most part. They require specific experience. Training programs need to be a little bit more innovative and dynamic. They need to anticipate some of the growing needs of the job market, especially taking into account the geography of where we're at, which is called the most innovative square mile in the world, Kendall Square. So being able to create programs that really bridge the gap between people growing up here and people that work here, because those are two disconnected worlds. And so training programs can connect that gap once people start to see the path there.
I think there's an abundance of resources, but what happens when there's an abundance of resources, lots of programs, events, resources fall through the cracks because folks don't know where to start looking, or there's just so many, right? And so where there's a lack of coaching and guidance to bring residents or to bring young people to those opportunities. There's a lack of follow-up, right? So let's say you're working with somebody, or you connect somebody to a resource, you call somebody else for a resource, and you connect a young person, but there's no follow-up to see if they went, how they're doing in the program, if they've graduated in the program. And so oftentimes it's not that there's a lack of programming or resources, it's just there's no threading that connects one program to another program, and then that follow-up of that individual that you've connected to that. We've worked with over 550 Cambridge residents, whether that's in person or through a program or through resume writing, interviewing skills. We've reached over 550 people. That's incredible in 3 years that we've been around. There's many different ways to think about what success is. At the Job Connector, we've created different goals and what does it mean to run a successful workforce development hub. we can think about the numbers, like the over 550 people that we've reached, but we can also think of success with the stories, the successful stories that people share with us, whether that's getting a job, getting into a program, a new position, a promotion that they've gotten, or just a resource that they've reached out through us. And so I think there's various different ways. It's analytical, but also the type of stories that you're able to capture.
My name is George Hines. I'm the Director of Youth Employment with the Office of Workforce Development. There's lots of ways that we can connect and that they can be helpful and useful to Cambridge teens and young adults. We need opportunities for informational interviews. We need opportunities for career speakers. We want internships. The easiest way for our young adults to kind of see what these industries are like and decide if it's something they want to do is to get some hands-on experience. I realize it's a big ask for the companies themselves to, bring somebody on board for 3 months or 6 months for an internship, but it would be a huge help to our residents. And then when the companies do participate and when they send folks out to do career panels to, or to welcome our teens and young adults in for informational interviews, thinking about who on their staff is doing that and trying to match, the populations that we have in our programs, where we have primarily Black and brown kids and folks coming from lower incomes, with folks at the tech companies who, like, those kids are going to be able to recognize as themselves and like people they could be someday, would be really helpful. We want to make sure that we, folks really believe in what we're doing and provide us with those resources. I think when we're providing more holistic support to our young people and we recognize that they have needs beyond just employment, that's where we start to run into some issues. So, and I don't think this is specific to Cambridge. There's not enough mental health resources for young adults, period, anywhere in the country, in Massachusetts, in Cambridge, and in particular, mental health providers who are prepared to support Black and brown folks and understand the specific needs that they have. There's just not enough, and there's not enough money being spent to support that. And even if we threw a ton of money at it, it would still take a while to get folks through the training and the certifications necessary. But so that's an area where I know there's still need, and I see that need in the work that I do. But there are a lot of resources being devoted to this population, and more it's just about making sure we find the population and connect them to those resources.
Interstate Weightlifting is a nonprofit organization headquartered in Boston, and we work with people who've been stigmatized by the judicial system. Too often without any search for someone's context, circumstance, or humanity. And we leverage our gyms and our personal training career track to not only create economic mobility, but to create community where people bridge social capital. So we work with people who have been stigmatized by the judicial system and have extra barriers around safety due to involvement in gun violence. Now, it's an interesting question, who do we aim to help? Because too often society is asking the very people who are responding to the inequities that have been laid at their feet to change. And it's not to eliminate someone's agency or accountability, but as we think about who are we looking to help, it's not just the people in our program, it's all the people like myself who are participating in these systems of inequity, who might say don't cross a certain street and think that they're helping to keep their friends safe when in reality they're playing into systemic racism. They're playing into these inequities that cut individuals and communities off from true access to the same opportunities that people like myself might take for granted.
Yeah, I could comfortably say that ICW has a good impact on the folks that work here and also on clients that come in for training. So The feedback that I hear from most clients is that they like the atmosphere and they like the community. You're here during a time of day where it's pretty quiet, there's not a lot of people working out, but if you come in the morning when there's a big group here, you come in here in the evening when there's a group here, you're gonna hear a lot of people laughing, you're gonna see a lot of people sweating, the music's gonna be up, and the energy gets really good. So I think like just in general, like having that community around training is one thing that, you know, positively impacts folks.
So we have some trainers who open up their own gyms. We have some trainers who end up managing other gyms. We also have a lot of people, in fact, the bulk of people in our program, who leverage the connections in our gyms to get jobs in industries outside of fitness. So we have several people now who are working jobs in the unions. We have the general manager of a Toyota dealership who's hired 17 people from our program. We've had tech company CEOs hire people from our program to run the coffee shop at their corporate offices. So people really go in any direction. And that's a lot about who we are and what we do. We're not trying to say this you know, set curriculum or prescribe these steps and you end up where we think you should. It's really about partnering with each person. There's a lack of society's willingness to look in the mirror. And what I mean by that is similar to what I was talking about before, where, you know, who are we asking to change? Are we asking the person who has had their family ripped apart by mass incarceration? And if you want to track back before that, Jim Crow, track back before that, racial terror, track back before that, slavery. Is that the person we want to ask to change? Or do we want to ask the people to change who are participating in these systems that keep this line moving through? And so, you know, I don't know if it's so much a lack of programs. There are great programs out there, as it is society's willingness to look at ourselves and our own actions. How did we end up where we are? We wanted to work with people who couldn't participate in other organizations. So there's a lot of deliberate outreach, teaming up with street workers, working in juvenile detention centers, and really focused on people who had been involved. And oftentimes the starting point is as a victim of gun violence, but also on the other side of that as well. So a lot of direct outreach and just trust building. So for participants, we root everything in what we call an individualized advancement plan. So as someone's coming into the program's broken into 4 stages. The first one is trust, then hope, then bridging social capital, and then economic mobility. That first stage where we're earning someone's trust, a lot of that is generally happening outside the gym. And as we're doing it, it's not just simply saying, hey, here's this program, come participate. It's really about leveraging the hook of this program to get to know someone. So does someone need an ID? Does someone have an open case? Do they need a letter of support? Do they need someone just to show up at court? Do they need a ride somewhere? You know, these are the things that we start to do to earn someone's trust. But as we're doing all this, we're also starting to understand, what does someone want? What's someone's interest? What's their hobbies? And as we do that, we build out these individualized advancement plans that, again, is really how we add structure to the partnership with each individual so that they kind of drive what are their needs, what are their wants, what are their desires, and then we try to bring in those resources. So a lot of times, you know, we partner with Youth Connect. They're a great group of clinically licensed social workers to deal with some of the trauma aspects. You know, we're writing letters of support for the courts and probation officers. We're helping out with transportation, housing, the resources we bring in. It's not just kind of this like very specific set of resources. It's really about, here's what someone needs. We have seen people spend record times out of jail, get to celebrate the holidays at home for the first time in years. We've seen people now buy their own home, and many more who can afford rent on the open market. We see people taking vacation, and we see people also just talking about the future in a way that someone might not have earlier on, because the challenges and barriers that they were up against were too severe to really take their eyes off today and into tomorrow. So we launched in Chicago last year as well. I'd love to see us, you know, quadruple our scale in Boston, continue to grow Chicago, and really do so with this idea in mind that, as important as policy change is, it doesn't work without individual moral change. If individuals aren't connecting, they're just going to circumvent whatever well-intended policy exists to create new loopholes and forms of oppression. But what happens when we choose to change individually, not just our moral beliefs and what we talk about, but our daily actions and what we do, now you get real change. First at the individual and family level, but you reach enough people, it starts to ripple out to someone's social circle, to someone's community. Reach enough, now all of a sudden you start to impact society. So I would love to see us grow to a size and scale in Boston and Chicago that we have this brand and platform as ICW.
Our interviews reveal that although there have been many successes in the workforce development and job training programs, there are opportunities to go further by highlighting existing resources and adapting them to potential new horizons.